Hey everyone, I just wanted to do this video really quick. While I had the chance to. I wanted to walk you guys through my Sega Genesis collection a little bit. Uh, this is my favorite retro system, just because it's the one I played the most while I was growing up. It seemed really weird, but like everybody on my street had a Sega Genesis for the most part, at least all my friends did. None of us really got into like Super Nintendo until like later on in like the sort of the later 90s, so like 90, well not even late 90s, like 97, 98, that's when I started getting more into it. Because I got another friend who was like, I don't play Sega Genesis, I have a Super Nintendo, and I was just sort of like, oh okay, that's weird, because none of my friends played Super Nintendo, but you know, it is what it is. Eventually he sort of showed me a lot of the games that I had been missing out on the Super Nintendo, but right now I want to talk about the Genesis. I love this system. Even the weird three-button controller with like the crappy layout of it where all the buttons are in like a straight line and it's terrible to play fighting games on, I still love that controller. I didn't even know there was a six-button option until I started collecting like in high school. So like early like 98, 99. That's when I found out there was a six-button controller, and I was like, oh my god, no wonder I was terrible at fighting. Well, at that time I was like, no wonder I'm terrible at fighting games. Now I realize it was more because I'm just terrible at fighting games. It had nothing to do with the controller. But anyway, I wanted to sort of show you guys a little bit of my collection here. I can't show everything in one shot, unfortunately. 'Cause I'm not that good with the camera yet, so maybe I'll go back and sort of redo this later. But I don't have as many as some other people, and I definitely don't have as many boxed. I didn't really care about getting Genesis games in the box until probably about a year or two ago. Before then, I was just like, I'll just get the cartridge. I can figure the rest of it out. Even in high school, I was just like, I don't really care about getting the box and the manual or anything like that. I just want the cartridge. And that's how I ended up with the close to about 150, 160 loose carts that I have behind me here. But yeah, so the way I have it organized is a lot of the games that I like playing, and coincidentally they're the popular ones I usually have up front here. So I got my Phantasy Star 2, 3, and 4, X Mutants, which I hadn't played before until a couple months ago, and now I just really love that game. Both the Toe Jam and Earls. A little bit about Toe Jam and Earl actually. I I had no idea what this game was, but it was one of like the first, I would say, two or three games that I played on the Genesis. And me and my friends we spent so many hours just trying to beat that game. Found out where the zero level was, and then spent way too much time in the zero level, and I was like, seriously, let's keep playing the game, and my friend was like, no, we're hanging out with chicks in a hot tub, and I was like, this is when we were like 10 or 11 or something. Actually, no, earlier than that. I don't even think I was 10 yet when we started playing the game, and I was like, yeah, that's great, but can we play the game, man? And, you know, that was just one of those things. The Genesis did have some crappy games on it. I mean, its library is, and I'm probably going to get this wrong, I think it's around like 700 or 800 games. It might be more than that. Probably about a third of them are sports. It has a lot of sports games on it, which are normally better than the Super Nintendo ones. I'm sorry to my friends who like the Super Nintendo games, but your sports games were not as good as the Genesis sports games for whatever reason. I think some of it had to do with EA just being really pissed off at Nintendo early on. Speaking of EA, you'll find they made two of my favorite sports games. Mutant Football League, or Mutant League Football and Mutant League Hockey. These are my two favorite sports games. Uh, and I was really glad when they made another one. But this, like, sort of points to something weird with EA. my friends and I had no frickin' clue what this little thing was at the very beginning. We didn't, like, realize that EA just made their own cartridges and whatnot. So when we saw that, it didn't look like the regular Genesis carts, and we were like, I wonder what's going on. So we immediately assumed it was like some sort of a memory expansion or something crazy like that. We were like between 8 and 10. We weren't exactly smart, and we couldn't put together that it was just a Genesis cart that was made by somebody else. It's a really cool story when you look at it. EA was able to basically reverse engineer the Sega Genesis and was able to leverage that to get a better deal from Sega as far as like publishing their own games, making their own carts, that sort of thing. But I didn't realize until probably I would say the early 2010s or so that EA released a lot of really awesome games, like a lot of PC ports. One that I'm a little bit disappointed with, but is still fairly good. They released this one, a King's Bounty, my gosh, a King's Bounty port. King's Bounty, if you've never played it, it's kind of like Might and Magic, Heroes of Might and Magic Zero, not technically Might and Magic, but the Heroes of Might and Magic series. King's Bounty is kind of like the Zero version of that. This port, it's well done, but it just makes me wish I was playing Heroes of Might and Magic, unfortunately. But yeah, they did a bunch of fun ports, and they did a lot of RPGs that usually only came out on PC and then were later ported to console. EA would port those over. So they did a few other ones. So they did like Buck Rogers up here, Fairy Tale Adventure, which, if you haven't played this, Fairy Tale Adventure plays a lot like Legend of Zelda, but in my opinion, and I'm horribly biased for Legend of Zelda, it's not as good. It has a fun story. You basically play as like three brothers, from what I remember, and you have to go on some quest. I'm gonna mess all of this up because it's been a little while since I played it. They also did Rings of Power, and Blades of Vengeance here, and then one of my favorite games, which I didn't know existed until like early 2000, General Chaos. But one thing they did, I can show you here. Let's pull out the Rings of Power cover. They made these really awesome cover arts, and like this looks like something you would get on a PC game back in the early 90s. It was way better than a lot of the Genesis ones, especially early on. Early on ones didn't look bad. Let's pull out Space Harrier. Space Harrier 2 looks pretty good, but for some reason, like, I just really prefer the way EA did it, where they have a better stylized version of the title, because, and this is kind of not really a fair comparison, but, Space Harrier 2 didn't do a great job. Let's look at a better one here. This cover's a little messed up. Alicia Dragoon is a little bit closer. So you see, which doesn't look a damn thing like the character in the game, but Alicia Dragoon sort of pulls that a little bit closer to like the EA style. You got a fairly nice looking dragon in there. It looks pretty close to the other one in Rings of Power, but it's still like the Rings of Power one just looks a little bit better than at least on the earlier on Genesis games. They're not absolutely perfect, but they're still very, very good. Probably the weirdest game that I have. It's not a common game. Well, it is a common game, but the way I got it is kind of weird. So this is my copy of Hard Driving, and I don't know if you can see it that well, but if you get close to this game, someone just beat the crap out of it, and I got this through a seller. I think it was either Amazon or on eBay, just because I was looking for a totally different game called Warrior of Rome. And Warrior of Rome is a strategy game, and it's very, very weird, and I don't really particularly like it. I think whoever made it, Yeah, I can't really see who made it onto here, so there's too many stickers in the way. But they tried to emulate what Koei did, and if you've seen any of my videos or anything like that, I love Koei games, especially Romance of the Three Kingdoms and Genghis Khan and Nobunaga's Ambition. Warrior of Rome tried to do that, but they didn't do it as well as Koei did. And you're probably wondering why I'm talking about Warrior of Rome when I'm holding a hard driving game. So hard driving is not the game that's supposed to be in here. This is a Warrior of Rome 2 case that someone, clearly this game had wronged them in a previous life, because they just beat the crap out of it. And instead of just using the bits, like the bit driver on the back, which kind of looks like they tried to do, they decided they would just like break open the thing. So it's got like a hole in it. You can there's this long crack going down it that just sort of destroyed the artwork on it, and the Warrior of Rome 2 artwork was fairly good. And then they shoved the board to hard driving in here. So yeah, that's the weirdest game that I have. Because it's very, very strange. Speaking of Koei, this game, which Koei put out, is Gemfire. This is my favorite version of it. I don't have the Super Nintendo version, but I have played it. I've got the NES version as well. But for some weird reason, the Genesis version of Gemfire is one of my favorites. I think it's probably because I played it when I was sick, at homesick, and I just absolutely love this game. This is, if you want to get into like the Koei strategy games, Gemfire is a great way to do it because it's sort of like the trial version. They don't throw everything at you in Gemfire, but it is, for me playing like some of the other games and then going to Gemfire, it kind of feels like they put the training wheels on you for this. Even though it's a smaller map, easier to play, the story's not the best, but that's me as an author of crappy books coming out and saying the story's not that great. But it's one of my favorites, and I was really glad that I could get a hold of this. I unfortunately don't have a complete in box, but whatever, I don't really need it. If you played one Koei game and you've been able to like master it, you kind of have an idea of what you're doing with that. Another fun strategy game, which this is actually the second time I bought this because the first one went missing. This is Dune for Sega Genesis. This is a really good port, but the problem is they didn't let you use the mouse with it. If they let you use the mouse with this, it would be absolutely perfect. But unfortunately, you have to use the D-pad, and if you've ever tried to play like Command and Conquer on the PlayStation, or even on the N64, trying to move around your cursor with just like a D-pad, or even the N64's analog stick, it's not the same as doing it with a mouse. But one thing this suffers for is the fact that you're trying to take a computer game and put it on a 16-bit console. That doesn't really work out that well. I mean, just look at the ports of Doom for the Genesis and also for the Super Nintendo. They're really rough, and this one is also pretty rough. They got the backgrounds right, and like the overworld, like the map that you're playing on, pretty good, but the sprites just are not there for it. That being said, it is a very good version of the game. If you can't get a hold of the PC version, which is not... the PC version is not called Dune, it's called Dune 2. I do have a copy of... that'll be for another video, though. So there is a Sega CD conversion of Dune, which was more of a point-and-click adventure, and then Westwood got a hold of it, and they were like, we're going to turn this into a strategy game. And they did a really good job with it. And then you get this one, which I actually got recently. This is not in its original case, unfortunately. It is in one of these nice rental cases. So you can see, like, at some point they tried to sell it, but there was also the Blockbuster video sticker on the back as well. So this is the second rental case game that I've gotten, but this is a really cool way that they did it. So I don't know if this is the original artwork underneath the sleeve here, but if it's not, it's probably very close. This is Master of Monsters. This is another strategy game, which is really cool. It's one of like the hexagonal strategy games that you can move around. And I haven't had a chance to really play it yet, but I'm actually looking forward to it. Um, just from looking through the manual, it sort of looks like it plays as Ogre Battle, but just a little bit. It's like a cross. It looks like it plays as a cross between Ogre Battle and also if you've ever played Conflict, it looks like it kind of plays as that. And I'm probably going on a stretch here with Ogre Battle, because Ogre Battle is its own unique game. But yeah, that's some of the Genesis games that I own. As you can see, I got the 6 original launch titles here. So Last Battle, Altered Beast, Space Harrier 2, Thunder Force 2, Tommy Lasorda's Baseball, and Super Thunderblade. I don't have the original for Tommy Lasorda's Baseball. I just have like the Sega Classics re-release. This is the other one that I have that's Sega Classics re-releases. I think Monaco GP, I have that one as well. But yeah, this is just a fun little collection that I have. Just a lot of memories of putting this whole thing together. Oh gosh, I forgot to talk about this. So these 2 games, Shining Force and Shining Force 2. When I got Shining Force, I had it on other systems, and I think I had it on ROM as well, but I got Shining Force. I went into this god-awful video game store, which I hope to God is out of business at this point, because they were terrible. It was a new video game store that just moved into like my area, and I went there in I think 2007 or 2008. And I was just looking around, and I walk in, and there's nobody in the store. Like, there are no customers, there's nobody behind the desk. It was frickin' weird. And so I'm like walking around the store all by myself, thinking like, do I take the game and then like pay on the way out? Does the store work on the honor system or something? And this is actually the first time I heard the word retro gaming, and I was just like, oh my god, I hate you. But now the game's sort of grown on me. But I walk up to the case, and they've got their retro games in a nice case there. And I also got another game there that I'll tell you in a minute. But there's Shining Force sitting there. And of course, if you've ever seen the Shining Force in a lot of these early Genesis labels, I'll grab another one. I'll grab Toe Jam and Earl as well. Oh no, I'll grab Biohazard Battle, just to show you guys what I mean. So they have the games sitting like this. Just when they're like this, you can't tell what the hell the game is, because for some weird reason Sega didn't put the label on the name of the game on the front. They just put it on the end labels there. And so they've got Shining Force just sitting like this in their cart, like in their little display case, like it's some crazy thing that they don't want to lose. And I walk up to it, and I'm like, oh wow, they've got... I recognize the label and everything. I was like, oh cool, they got Shining Force. And it seemed like 5 to 10 minutes later, this dude walked out. And he's like, oh hey, how's it going? Oh, you're looking at the retro games. And I was like, yeah, I'd like your copy of Shining Force. And the other game that was there was Metal Storm for the NES. And I had never played Metal Storm, so I was like, yeah, I'll take this, and I'll take Metal Storm. And this is the part that might like blow people's minds, but this was again 2008. Shining Force was $14.99 and Metal Storm was $4.99 at the time. And the guy, like, and I don't understand why he did this, but like he picks up the Shining Force and he goes, you know this is $14.99, right? And that was even a low price for 2008. I was like, yeah, I know it's $14.99. Like, and I was all excited and everything, which I probably shouldn't have been, because he could have, like, at least the sticker was already on it, so he couldn't like jack the price up anymore. I was like, yeah, I know, I know it's $14.99. And he was like, okay, and so he rings me up, And I leave the store, and like on the way out, I'm just like, this guy's a fucking idiot. Like, oh my god, I can't believe he sold me Shining Force for $14.99. And come to find out later that Metal Storm like just skyrocketed in price, and I was like, oh my god, wow, he sold me Metal Storm for $4.99. I don't know if that was expensive for it back then. I really didn't know anything about the game. But yeah, that's how I got Shining Force. I got Shining Force 2. I might have went to the video game store with the guy that I actually trusted, because his games were usually priced about right, and I didn't see any other like weird deals at that other video game store, and I really hope to God they went out of business because they were just terrible. I think the guy that ran the video game store, if you ever go to Grand Rapids, Michigan, the guy runs the video store Vidiot's, and his name is Ed. He's a really awesome guy. I think Ed actually went to that new video game store to like check their prices and like cleaned them out of all their really rare stuff that they had for retro gaming, just because that's not what he did for a living, but well, he did run a video game store for a living, and he wanted to see if they were pricing them higher or lower. But when he saw like what they were pricing a lot of their rarer retro games, he was just like, yeah, and I'm gonna buy all these, and then I'll sell the ones that I don't want for my collection. Which he did quite a bit. I brought in a lot of stuff that probably ended up in his collection as well, especially when I sold off my initial like Dreamcast and other video game collections, probably in like 2002. I sold off most of my games in like 2002 when I joined the Navy, and then I spent the next 5 years like buying it all back. There were a few games I didn't get rid of, but yeah, that's just the way it went. Anyway, that's just a brief look at my Genesis collection. I don't have any of like the super rare stuff. Like I don't have a Crusaders of Senti, and honestly I can't afford it at this point. But yeah, it's a fun collection. Yeah, I'm still working on it today. Mostly just I've been trying to get more of the boxed games today, because I have a loose card of Last Battle as well floating around somewhere in here, or maybe in one of the the Sterilite bins that are on either side of me. And you guys can kind of see like how cramped my apartment is right now. Normally you guys just see me when I'm sitting in my chair, and I just moved it from where it normally is over to here. But yeah, let me know what you guys think of the video. I mean, it's not flashy or anything, but you know, just let me know what you think. I'll probably go through some of my other collections later on. But, you know, it is what it is. So I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Let me know what you think in the comments below. If you hated it, definitely let me know, because that'll tell me what I need to change for next time. Anyway, have a good night, everybody. See you later.